Welcome to the EnsoReal Paradigm Shifters podcast. This show is for and about the entrepreneurs who work to improve and expand our human well-being by bringing cutting-edge technologies and ideas to life. We are Marie and Magnus Dahlgren, your hosts. In this episode, we talk to John Craig. John is a self-defined Irish, Canadian, British Japanthropologist. As a writer, documentary filmmaker, and corporate advisor, John travels the world to meet researchers and thinkers for his Japanese YouTube channel, Echan Juku, with over 223 lectures in Japanese about an eclectic range of thought-provoking subjects. He is also the host of Real Rover podcasts and is currently in Canada. His most recent documentary, Why on Earth, about a barefoot trek across Iceland, is soon to be released. And now, here is our conversation with John Craig.
Nice to see you looking so bright and cheerful.
Hello.
Where are you?
We're in the United States, Maryland.
Oh, that's right. You're in Maryland. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How are you doing? You said you moved in Canada last time.
Oh, moving from A to B. I was in Nelson, British Columbia, which is in the mountains. And now I'm in Panda Island, which is an island between Victoria and Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in Japan. So, you know, there's been a lot of movements and
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Nice to see you both. So I am in transit right now. I didn't expect to be here. I should be back in Japan.
Huh, interesting.
But I decided to change the schedule for a variety of reasons. And my sister has a home here in Panda, and she's in the UK. So I'm looking after her house, drinking coffee, and getting ready for your amazing question.
Yeah, okay.
That's great. And before we start, I wanted to share with you my insight, I would say. Once I was surfing on the internet, on Facebook, and I saw this video which fascinated me a lot. And this was the video about grounding, in particular about the device, which helps people to ground themselves while they're sleeping or working or playing. And I was so just stunned, and I was talking about this maybe after I saw this video for 2 weeks to everybody, and each and everybody, look what I found. It's very interesting. And when I have heard from you, and I got to know that you know what this earthing means, and that actually you're the founder of this movement, I thought to myself, oh, this would be very nice to share this video with John, because it's like an extension, it's a practical use of this grounding. And after that, I went to your website. And of course, I started to get ready for our interview, and I watched all the videos, and I found exactly the same video. And my question for you now, how does it work, these coincidences? Because I had read a little bit about your biography, and I stumbled upon such a term as open source consciousness. So does it work somehow through this open source consciousness, these kind of coincidences? Because that's amazing.
So your question is really about synchronicity.
Right.
And actually, a friend of mine who, to give a brief background, is a film editor. And we made a film 10 years ago called Earth Pilgrims. So the theme of Earth goes back. Earth Pilgrims was produced 10 years ago, and as my video editor, he went on to make his own film called Infinicity, which was the idea about synchronicity and its infinite attributes, called Infinicity.
Huh.
And so he asked a variety of people in various fields, what is your take on synchronicity?
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of them. And the synchronicity of your question is that I told him the story of what happened to me on this island 10 years approximately ago when I returned to Canada. I also have Canadian citizenship, by the way. I have British, Canadian, and Irish. So I have 3 passports. And I live in Japan. So I came back to this island after a long absence.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister, who's resident here,
Yeah.
she said, we need to do a kind of return ceremony for you on Medicine Beach. Because this is kind of a very special place for the First Nations here.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a lot of ceremony here, the First Nations people, over the centuries. And so the beach is called Medicine Beach. Medicine meaning, of course, good for the spirit, connection with spirit. So she said, we need to go to the beach to do a ceremony. She's an old Irish witch, I think. You know, she's quite a connected woman. So she says, let's go to the beach. We sit down on the beach, and the first thing we see flying towards us is, we think it's probably a kite or a hawk, and it flies towards us, dives into the water, picks up a fish in its beak, flies up, and then drops the fish right in front of our faces, about 100 meters away. And we think, well, that's interesting, but it could be a coincidence. A bird has shown itself to us. This bird then flies up to our left to the top of a tree and sits there. And we thought, oh, that's interesting. And about 3 minutes later, an eagle flies around us, demonstrates its presence. It flies up and takes its position next to the bird that dropped the fish, which is kind of strange. You know, these are two. Are they rivals? These birds. How does the eagle relate to the hawk? I mean, have you ever seen 2 of them in the same place, like
No,
on
never.
tree next to each other? And then she turns around and she said, "Well, if there's 2, there's going to be 3."
3, yeah.
And a few minutes later, turkey vulture flies in. Now, a turkey vulture is native to this area. It's an unusual bird because it has a red color on its head. It's like it has like a vulture, like a turkey. It has this mat, and it's red. And my sister is wearing a red hat.
Oh my God.
So this turkey vulture takes its position next to the eagle, which is sitting at the top of a tree, right, next to a hawk. So then you do the devil's advocate. What are the statistical probabilities that 3 entirely different species of bird will show up within 7 minutes next to each other at the top of 3 trees, just as we've started a ceremony to welcome me back to Canada? And I think any statistician would have to admit that's probably never happened.
Yeah, right.
So your question evokes the response of a synchronicity that happened on this very island 10 years ago. And that's a classical, easy to understand one because it's so obvious.
Yeah.
So you're finding out these connections with earthing and our connection with London Real, the fact that we are now connected to something that connects to this, because everything is all about connection.
Yes, and that's amazing.
It's a very typical story in a sense.
That's how it works. Okay, great. John, I have read a lot about you on the internet, and seems like you work different paths and you were in different places and have done a lot of things. And my question now, what's something about you that people would be surprised to know?
Good one. What's something about me that people would be surprised to know?
Yeah.
I like it. Well, I don't know what you found out about on the internet. I have two names, right?
Right.
And so this name, John Craig, which is my birth name, is actually the most common name. Probably, it could be the most common name in the world. If you look up John Craig on Facebook, there are so many pages you'll never find him. John Craig is in my hometown of Aberdeen in Scotland. There were 5 or 6 telephone book pages that just continued as John Craig. Because John is a Christian name, of course, is very common. Craig in Scotland comes from crag, which means rock. So it's an extremely common name. So that's one thing that just popped out of my head that people would not know about me, is that this name itself is so common all over the world that if you were to look for a specific John Craig, you'd actually have a really hard time finding him unless you had specific data.
Yeah.
And there's a story about why I have the name Echan Juku in especially in the Orient. But that's something about me that people wouldn't know, is the commonality. It's Mr. Everybody.
Interesting.
Mr. Everybody, yeah.
And why did you decide to use the second name, Echan Juku, you said?
Okay, you asked. Here we go.
Okay.
You asked.
I'm guilty. Okay.
Okay. Back to this part of the world.
Right.
Approximately 20 miles that way is Victoria, British Columbia.
Okay.
And so I had come to Canada with my family from Japan in 1989. It was a great, impossible adventure. 3 children, a dog, a one-way ticket, a desperate need to leave Japan, where I had lived for 15 years, nonstop. Literally, I had gone out of Japan once in 15 years, which is unheard of. People, who are not Japanese will regularly get out to just, because the stress level, the language, everything is so different. But I just stayed because I was studying so many things. But by the end of 15 years, I'd had it with Japan. That's it. This place is so narrow-minded, conservative, old-fashioned village mentality. I had it with this. I'm leaving. And I don't care if I have to be, I actually said to my wife, I don't care if I have to drive taxis. I'll do anything to get out of this place, right?
Okay.
So I left with my family on a really, everybody said, no, don't go. You'll never get a job. You got such a good job in Japan. I was a university lecturer, an acupuncturist, a translator, an interpreter. I had really good work. And everybody said, don't leave. You're never going to get a job. What are you doing? You're crazy. A one-way ticket. And I said, no, I'll do anything to change. So I came, amazing synchronicities happened. I end up being the president of a real estate consulting firm called Japan Consultants within 1 year, that is so successful that everybody is just dribbling with jealousy. How come this guy with no training, no background in real estate, nothing, how come he's got Japanese clients about buying $1 million properties? How does that work? I started off as a garden laborer because I didn't have the visa. And I was reading Think and Grow Rich by
Yes,
the man,
Napoleon.
right? Napoleon, because, you know, I got to feed my family. I got to do something here. And here's the law of synchronicity in perfect operation. It just happened. The call came, something started, and within a very short period of time, no training, no understanding of real estate, no connections, no university diploma, nothing, zero, except one thing. I can speak fluent Japanese and I can read it and write it. And I realized there's nobody else on this entire island of Vancouver Island. There is not one person who can do this except me.
That's great.
So to know what you're good at is really important, right?
Yes.
But then, okay, so what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this talent? I don't know. But, you know.
But I have it.
the programming works. So we're leading to why the name came.
Mm-hmm.
So instant, like I was on CBC News, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation had a special entrepreneurial episode just about what I was doing. It was unbelievable. It was incredible. I mean, what? You can't pay for this kind of advertising. I didn't even look for it. So this is kind of key. I was talking with my good friend who's here visiting with me now yesterday. Naivety is really good when you want synchronicity to work. When you're too mental and cognitive and I'm going to program myself to succeed, I'm going to program myself to succeed. That's not innocence. That's not naivety. That's not openness.
Yes.
That's cerebral strategy. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, I don't know. I got to do something. I got to feed my family. And boom, $10 million of real estate later, I was sitting pretty.
I can imagine.
But the Japanese real estate market collapsed in 1992.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And everything fell apart. All of the investors fled from Canada. All of the real estate they'd bought around the world, they had to get rid of. It was a major market crash from an inflated bubble economy. And anybody in Japan, they use the term baburu, right? When the bubble burst, we all felt it. So suddenly, the carpet was pulled from under my feet.
Yes.
I lost everything overnight. And everybody's gone. The investors have disappeared, and I'm left holding the bag.
Huh. Great.
So what do you have? You have a classical descent into darkness, dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. You have all of the stress that goes with it. You have the near-death experience from the huge stress I was suffering from. I had 3 children. I had a huge house, 2 cars. I had all this to pay for. And suddenly, everything's gone. It's the worst nightmare you can imagine for a businessman. And so I went down fast. Ended up in hospital. Lots of things happened. Near death, the whole thing, all at once. So the name was revealed, given, understood after I had to say a paranormal experience is trite, because people think paranormal is some kind of, no. Paranormal experience is extremely natural and common when a human being goes through a transformative experience. It's normal. It's not para. You would expect to go through a profound change of consciousness with that much outside pressure on the hero's journey to get with the program and move to the next stage of the journey.
Yes, I agree with you absolutely. I've been there, so I know.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's totally normal and natural to expect phenomena that nobody has ever seen, heard, described, but they have heard, described, and seen them in ages up until now, except we're so stupid these days. We're so cerebral. We have no place to understand these phenomena, and so we discount them cognitively as, oh, it's just a ha, ha, ha. But what happened to me was so riveting that I actually invited other people to see what was happening to me, first my family and then friends, to make sure that I had not actually cracked. Because I was studying a lot of psychology at the time also, and analysis and all kinds of stuff. So I knew that I might crack under this amount of stress. I could actually lose it.
Yeah.
At which point you do actually start to hallucinate. So I was aware of that.
And
so to cut a long story short, what started to appear nightly in the skies above a certain small forest that I would go to, and which continued to appear night after night after night after night for 8.5 years.
8.5?
Yeah. That began a process of transformation that was extremely rigorous. And after about 1.5 years of nightly experiencing impossible things to comprehend, I called these things flying koans. Koan is used in Zen training to completely disempower your cognitive mind from trying to get smart answers to everything, right?
Okay.
So we all have answers in our heads to things, but Zen training is to take you beyond that. So a koan is a riddle, an impossible to answer question, a paradox. And the most famous ones traditionally are, what is the sound of one hand clapping?
Yeah.
Right? That's the most famous one. The ones that we started with in our early training in Zen in Japan, we had an English-speaking master. His first question is, what is one? Right?
One. What is one? One is everything.
Ask that to 10 people and see what kind of answer you get.
Different.
Oh, 1, 3 minus 2, bang! You get hit by a stick, right? And he says, what's that supposed to mean, 3 minus 2? That's a concept. I'm not asking you to give me concepts. I'm asking you, what is one? Right?
Yeah.
The verb to be in the middle of that question. I'm not asking you about the concept of one. I'm asking you, what is it? And you're just giving me bird chatter through your face about concepts. Some people, it took them 3 years to answer that question.
And could you give us example of these contacts or these flying coins, as you said? Just an example so we can understand better your experience. It's very interesting.
Most people refer to flying koans as UFO.
Okay.
Right? Most people. But that's a very tricky concept, because to just say it's an unidentified flying object immediately starts a conceptual chain of, well, it must be a spaceship. Oh, it must be an American military top secret project.
Yeah.
Right? So all of these answers start appearing when you see something that doesn't fit in with your paradigm. Right?
Right.
Which is why when the first indigenous people in North America saw a ship come up the St. Lawrence River, most of them didn't see it. They didn't see it. The shaman saw it. They didn't have the conceptual framework for their brain to actually recognize what that object was coming up the river. They didn't see it. Right? There's no receptors for it. So I call it a flying koan because that's much closer to the truth. It is an unanswerable, impossible riddle. It is not an object. It is not a thing. It is something connected to your consciousness that you're experiencing, but other people can see. That's another part of the riddle. Is it objective? Is it subjective? How come it appears at any time of the night that I happen to go to this place? It appears as if waiting. I mean, what is this? And as the years went by, I did lots of experiments with this aerial phenomena. For example, breathing with a witness. I had a guy with me, a witness, right?
Yeah.
Let's try an experiment. There's a huge beaming light in the sky, enormous, powerful tractor beam coming down at us. And so I said, let's do an experiment. Let's breathe. So we both start breathing. The thing starts to pulsate in exact rhythm with us. And I suddenly start like this, and it starts to pulsate at the same rhythm. Now, if that doesn't crash all of your brain programs, I don't know what will.
I have a question. Do you think it's a separate entity, or it's something that you not created? I mean, not mentally created, but it's...
That's the question. That's the question.
What's the answer?
If you don't get to that question, you haven't even begun to study UFO, right? There's of all the best books written about UFO, Visitors from Within is a really good one. And that's the hint, Visitors from Within. So that's a really good question, Mary. So after 8.5 years of this, my brain is completely being reconfigured because no answer is right. No answer is correct. So I study anthropology, I study physics, I study astronomy, I study mythology, depth psychology. I mean, I approach this thing from every possible angle to try and get a handle on what the hell is happening to me here, right? What are these things appearing in the sky every night? I invoked them at the depths of my depression. I actually invoked this because I exclaimed to the night sky, what the hell are you guys doing up there? Get your shit together and come down here and start to help me. Guides, whatever you want to call them, show up. And I was angry. I was like, would you please help me, God? No. It's like, show your face because I know you're there. Now, last thing I expected was that. The last thing. I'm still getting to the name. I haven't forgot the question, but it's all related.
Okay.
Your question, sub-question here, do you think it is objective or subjective?
Right.
Is it in the objective world, or is it an apparition generated by your own consciousness? That is the key question that all science is now getting to. Right? Is there an objective world? I was chanting the Heart Sutra this morning after Zazen. Right? Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is no other than emptiness, form is no other than form. The hell does that mean? Right?
Yes.
What does that mean?
One, it means one.
So, objective, subjective, one. There isn't any objective, subjective. There's one infinite field. Everything happens there. There's no me and it. So after 8.5 years of this, during which time, in year 2, I was standing on a beach. Backtrack. I had gone to Japan. I had returned to Canada, and it was exactly 1 year after the first apparition of this in the sky. And I went, oh, what a coincidence. I'm back in Victoria, exactly 1 year. So I better go to Field 23, which is the name I gave to the field of synchronicity.
Okay.
Field 23.
Field 23.
And nothing happened. I was driving towards the field, and suddenly, synchronicity also involves telepathy, remote viewing, and lots of other connected phenomena. On my way to the field, a very instant message, different place. They usually put you in insane asylums for this kind of stuff, right? Location different. So I turn the car around and I head towards a beach, and there are two light Cessna planes at 11:30 p.m. in Victoria above my car to the left and the right, right? And of course, the average Joe will go, oh, there are two people out flying at 11:30 p.m. in Victoria, British Columbia. But I go, oh, those are not planes. Those are not what they appear to be.
Huh.
All right? It gets weird.
Okay, it's interesting. And during these 8.5 years, what kind of information did you receive? So was there some kind of aim or result of this? Because of course you saw them, they were there, they answered in such a way to your, let us say, prayers or your request. And what's next? What
Good.
kind of information did you receive, and what are you doing with
Well,
this?
the first information I received was my name. So I ended up getting to that beach.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a very bright light, as if waiting. And I began to do Tai Chi on the beach because I tried many ways to communicate with this phenomenon.
Yes.
Mental, physical, etc. And so I began to do Tai Chi on the beach. And there was instant response to my movement, arm going out, brightening, arm coming in, dimming, right? I mean, it's so difficult for people who have never experienced this to even begin to wrap their brains around the no categories here. You know, there are no categories. Yeah. This is not a spaceship. Sorry, forget about this. That's a childish explanation for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear Echan Deravi, Echan Deravi, Echan Deravi. What the hell does that mean?
And you hear? Did you hear this inside your head? Like
no, it's when people talk about telepathy as if there is a communication of sound coming from A to B. That's not how it works. It's instantaneous understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Instantaneous understanding. Okay. I don't even know if it's audio. Mm-hmm. So the name Echan Deravi comes in, and that was the second koan. Okay, go figure. That took 1.5 years to figure out. And one day, oh, it's my name. And it was so clear. I was on a train in Japan. Oh, it's my name. What an idiot. How come it took me 1.5 years to figure it out? What an idiot. It's my name.
Wisdom takes time.
Huh?
Wisdom takes time.
So I immediately went to the British Embassy. That's how clear I was. I went to the British Embassy immediately and filed a request for a name change.
And what does this name mean? Do you know now?
I have no idea.
No idea.
I have no idea. I mean, that's to try and figure out what your name means. No. That's beyond me. But I just know that it is my name. John Craig is the name my parents applied to me when I was born. Mm-hmm. My name is Echan Deravi. Whatever that means.
Okay, maybe you will find out this someday. Who knows?
Well, I'm running out of time, but maybe. So. But your question, what did you like understand or get from this?
Yes, what kind of information, maybe knowledge, information, insights, or maybe I don't know, maybe you found out your path through this. What was this experience, your experience during this 8.5 years?
Okay, that's good. And I'll relate that back to the question about objective and subjective.
Yes, right? Yes, right.
The most important thing that came out of all of this was at the end, because after 8.5 years, I was every night, I could, when it wasn't cloudy, I would take my dog to this little, it was like a little forest, a little wood in a school ground, a beautiful location in Victoria. So every night was different. Every night a different form of this phenomenon, different colors. I mean, it got really weird. It did everything possible to smash the boundaries of my conceptual reality, because that's what a Zen koan is about. In order for you to understand what is one, you have to actually become one.
Yes, to dissolve all the boundaries.
Then when you answer, the master will go, finally. So after 8.5 years, I was trying to sell my house, beautiful property. I mean, it should have sold in a day. Wouldn't happen. Wouldn't happen. Show the house, no offers. Show the house, no offers. It was beyond ridiculous. And then I realized, I am so fascinated by being here every night. This is more thrilling, more interesting, more exciting than any philosophy, religion, shamanic ceremony I've ever been through. This is way beyond. This is it, man. I need to show up in this forest every night and see what happens tonight, because it gets more and more interesting. It's like being led along a path. You think you're going to understand, and it goes, nope, you didn't get it yet. Let's go up another road. So finally, I realized I got to get out of here. I got to stop this relationship. This is like a really dangerous relationship because it's keeping me here. Maybe that's why I can't sell my house. That's synchronicity too. So I said, tonight, that's it, boys. We got to stop this. We got to stop this relationship tonight. And by the way, what the hell is going on here anyway? I have no clue what this is about. I'm more confused than ever. I haven't got the answer. So can I just, before we finish this relationship, can you just tell me, like, what is going on here? Who are you?
Yes.
That was it. Who are you? Guess what the answer was?
You.
We are
Thank
you.
you.
We are you.
We are you. It came in a different format. It was a little bit more anecdotal. It was, you're the captain of this ship. You are the captain of this ship. What?
Okay, I have a question. Why did you create this ship? How do you think? To help you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even better. It gets better. Your questions get better. Why did you create this?
Yes.
How did you create this? Is there actually a me to create it? What is me? Right? It's a deep rabbit hole, this one. Really deep rabbit hole, because that's where, what is me? What is here? What is there? What is subject? What is object? Who am I? What are you? It's very, very simple, but it's very, very complicated too. So I believe that this phenomenon led me into so much research. It created all of Echan Deravi's body of work, especially in Japan, practically unknown out of Japan. But there are so many genres that I've had to cover in the last 20 odd years because of this phenomenon, that the learning curve has been so extreme and so interesting and so wonderful, not forgetting, so wonderful, that it's a never-ending story. It's the never-ending story of human consciousness. It's the never-ending story of all spiritual quests. You're never going to arrive. You're never going to get this. You're never going to get this as long as you are there to get it. As long as you are there, you're never going to get it. This is the great paradox of all so-called spiritual work. To get it, you have to disappear. So, and that's classical Zen training. You'll never get it until you get out of the picture.
Did you get it? I mean, you mean not physically disappear, right?
No. I don't mean physically
when your
disappear.
ego
I
disappears.
mean the egoic contraction that you call me.
Mhm.
I.
Did you
Right?
disappear?
Unfortunately, I'm still here. Or fortunately. So it's like, nah, I never got it. We're still in process.
Okay.
Don't know if I'll get it. Don't know if there's enough time left to get it. It's the old spiritual game of I need to get it. I need to get it. And as long as there's the slightest contraction of I need to get you're not going to get it. So final note. I came back to Vancouver Island 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's been since that phenomenon started in 1992. That's when I wrote my first book. It inspired the first book. And it went on for 8 years. So take you up to 2018. 18 years later, I end up in the same place. And I think, probably nothing happened, right?
Huh.
Why would it happen? I mean, I'm older, I'm different, I'm changed, you know?
Okay.
Nothing had changed. Nothing.
When you had this experience in the forest, you told us about, how did you feel? Could you explain a little bit how it feels like?
Fascinated, excited, inspired, high, confounded, confused, amazed, exhilarated. It was better than anything you could imagine.
Mhm.
It was better than a person, meditation, whatever you want to call it. It was way beyond. So it became the center of my inspiration.
Creativity.
Oh, unbelievable. A gift, an absolutely almighty gift that I asked for. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Show
Yeah.
your face. No, it was show your face or else. That's serious. And I think a lot of people in their spiritual work don't get that serious. It's like, you know, it's got to be or else.
Okay.
And, you know, I had a friend who was in a Zen monastery for 10 years.
Mhm.
Her teacher, the Korean Zen masters are really, really hard ass.
Mhm.
I mean, the Japanese are pretty tough. The Koreans, woo. He meditated with a knife
Oh.
stuck in his neck like this. So if he fell asleep for even 2 seconds, he'd be dead. Right? That's how the guy meditated.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right? That kind of rigorous seriousness
Mhm.
applied to spiritual work has almost been completely forgotten in the world. Everybody's playing around at it.
Yeah. Yes, it's more like a fashionable thing to do
It's
than
cool.
the
You know,
deep
oh, let's get our yoga mat and go off and do yoga
and meditate.
and meditate.
I have a question. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Just my my thinking here. Did you have this feeling that you stopped these relationships deliberately, not to
Oh,
disappear?
you're definitely going to be a master podcaster because your questions are really to the point. So your question is, did you actually stop this?
Deliberately, not to prevent yourself from this disappearing yet.
That is excellent. Well, I certainly stopped it because I knew if I didn't stop it, I would never sell my house. And sure enough, after that last unbelievable on parade kind of night, it was like something out of Close Encounters, really. Remember that scene in Close Encounters where they're all flying over and the guys are sitting at the edge of the road going, whoo, whoo, whoo. It was like that. It was like that. It was like every single form it had taken over 8.5 years appeared that night as if to say, okay, you want to stop the relationship? Good on you. Anytime you want us to come back, we'll be back. But you asked for it. Bye-bye. My house sold a week later.
Huh.
Go figure. So I would say that in all spiritual training traditions and in shamanic traditions too, you get to a stage where it becomes like, okay, like you said, if you carry on like this, it could actually get really strange. And you might actually be in danger at some point
Yes, I agree.
of losing your balance, perhaps. Maybe something like that. You won't be able to come back to the normal world.
Yes, yes.
Which is, you know, in the 10 ox herding pictures, the guy's going to look for the ox, which means enlightenment, and he sees its tail in ox herding picture number 1. He gets on the bull round about 6, and then round about 7 or 8, the bull disappears and he disappears, and then you just get an empty circle. But then the last ox herding picture is he's a fat old guy in the marketplace playing with the kids. He's become a holy idiot. He's the fool. He's returned to the world, right?
So it was more like a safety necessity for your.
Yeah, I think so. I think because I had a family, and you know, I had to create the business. I had to carry on life as normal. And so if you go too deep down that rabbit hole, it's an endless labyrinth, and you can get lost.
Yes,
especially if you start putting labels on it. Oh, this means that, or whatever. So I think that the house selling situation had pulled me back from the brink, and it was like, no, now you got to come back here and forget about all this. Just forget about it.
And how do you feel about this nowadays? I mean, are there thoughts about the continuation of this experience, or no? Or it's enough? And
no, I went back to field 23 3 weeks ago, and nothing had changed. They were back. And so then I realized the maybe you can call it the timeless nature of this phenomenon. It's got nothing to do with time or space or this little place we call our universe. It's so far beyond all of those concepts that it's always here, all the time. But I don't need to see it as I used to. I don't need that. I don't need the proof of, oh, wow, I have the support, because that has been internalized. I don't need it to be out there, but it's really thrilling and wonderful. And I came back after that night and said to my son, they're back. And I was like happy, you know, wow, nothing changed. 20 years. So I come back in 2,000 years to be the same. 8 million years.
When you're saying they or them, how many of them? 2, 3, 5, 20?
On some nights, well, 3 weeks ago, about 4 different flying objects appeared, 2 of which emitted the tractor beam, which has a quality of light that's not electronic. When you see a very bright star like Sirius, the kind of light that it emits is not an electronic light. It's a living light. It's alive light, right? Star living. So that kind of quality of very bright and beautiful and simple and living light is, of course, the symbol that has been used throughout all time for spiritual realities. Light. We are light. And so I would say that it's a symbolic way of getting human attention at a very, very basic level.
Yes,
light.
Metaphor.
It's a metaphor for who we are. And much later in the Amazon jungle, I ended up asking some serious questions about what light actually is. And again, the old paradoxical koan is the answer to the question, what is light? You are. And again, I never expected the answer. I expected information about light as an objective phenomenon. It's not an objective phenomenon.
And now when we started to talk about life, I would like to connect this with the earthing. Can you please
master.
Give this connection?
What's the connection? Okay, with earthing and all of this like otherworldly stuff. This is really good because what had happened was I had left the earth so far out. All of my lectures in Japan in the 1990s were all about the universe, cosmology, physics, quantum physics, all about that dimension. Nothing to do with this at all. So I was like David Bowie's movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth. That's what happened to me. And it was quite later on in the process. So Echan Juku was Mr. Cosmic, Mr. Ascension, Mr. Let's get on with the transformation. And I wasn't interested in anything to do with this planet at all. But that was entirely reversed about 5 years ago. No, well, 10 years ago, we did Earth Pilgrims. So there was hints. You're a pilgrim on Earth, but just for a short while, a transitory phenomenon. Later on, earthing came, and that was what took me and right back and planted my feet on the ground and said, no, you're not a cosmic being at all. None of that matters anymore. You are actually just a guy here on Earth. So why don't you get reconnected with the planet that you ended up on instead of thinking about all these other places? I think that was where the light led me, was back to Earth. So earthing has become the center of my activity.
And that's interesting. You said that you're an average guy, and I had this thought that you're a human being. And in all the spiritual, or in most of the spiritual teachings, they say that the human being is the very unique being. The purpose of ourselves is to reconnect these other dimensions with the practical stuff here on Earth. That's what you're doing currently.
And in Japanese, we have three characters: ten, heaven; jin, human; earth. Ten, jin, chi. That's the compressed bonsai philosophy of the whole thing. Three: heaven, human, earth. So you just expressed it.
Yes.
Without us, there's none of this.
Yeah. Does it feel like you live your self-realization now?
Does it feel like?
Like self-realization currently for you?
Self-realization, I wouldn't say that, no. What it feels like now is, as Sherlock Holmes was very fond of saying, the game is afoot.
Okay, so you're enjoying.
We're just getting started. The game is afoot. Okay. So, and part of the game now is be on this earth, connected here now. And on that note, last night, my good friend came to visit me, and he was the first person to actually review the documentary film that I hope will bring earthing to everybody. It's called Why on Earth? And it's the story of an old guy decides to walk across Iceland barefoot. And it's taken 10 months to edit. Oh, and we saw it yesterday. So hopefully we'll take the idea of earthing beyond the health fad that it currently is to, actually, it's much bigger than that. It's environmentalism, ecology, spirituality, health, sanity, connection. It's all of these things. And I hope that the journey across Iceland will inspire people to see, that's why you end up connecting with birds and animals and weather and the heartbeat of the planet. I actually heard, me and my Jeep driver, my supply driver, we heard the sound of earth 3 times in the middle of the night. There was no night.
How does it
A
sound like?
deep, deep hum.
Um,
That's the sound of the planet.
oh,
And you have to go to the middle of Iceland to hear it. How many of you have heard the sound of the planet?
uh, I have heard the so-called recording of NASA, I think, and it's beautiful. It's like a song.
It's a very, very healing sound to actually hear. And it would only happen at certain times of the night. So earthing is hopefully going to be an easy to understand way. None of the quantum physics and the cosmic and the, you know, the shamanic, all of that's great, but it can be a big, big trap. You can get lost very easily. And it's the native people of the world, the indigenous people of the world, who I've always found on all of my journeys are the most grounded, the most sane, the kindest, the clearest. They've really got it together, these people, because every day they're connected to the planet.
Yes, that's what I am thinking currently while I'm listening to you, that maybe, not maybe, it sounds like the practical tool, how we can be still grounded to this earth and combine this connection with the other dimension or this creative source to create here. That's great.
You've actually summarized it beautifully, because that's exactly where I'm coming from now with heaven, human, and earth. And I actually I've written a book called Why on Earth in Japanese, and its final kind of thesis is, if you're actually considering seriously any kind of spiritual work, the fastest way to approach it is through the earth.
To ground yourself.
And you'll find that it's a lot easier to do spiritual work if you're earthing, transformative work, or whatever you want to call it, shamanic work. You will have a much safer, cleaner journey if you're actually connected to the earth.
Yes.
But if you're insulated from the earth with your holy shoes, you're actually going to get kind of confused really quickly. And that's kind of like the period of the whole body of work for the last 25 years. The man who fell to earth and actually realized, this is where I am. I'm not on some other dimension, but that doesn't mean the other dimension doesn't exist.
It exists.
It means that you need to be grounded in order to connect to the multidimensional universe. So here we are.
That's amazing. Actually, it's a big insight for myself, because I had my journey too, like all of us, and I had this question: how on earth you can remain sane and at the same time have this access to this creative force? Because this kind of energy, it could just burn you out, all your skin, all your gear.
That's the penultimate question, actually. How do you do that without losing the plot, without getting sick, without destruction? I mean, we've seen so many talented people in history go through these kind of experiences, and it has destroyed them. I mean, the litany of artists and pioneers and writers and thinkers who've actually had so much promise, so much talent, it's not funny. And you see how they end up.
Yes, a lot of
it's
them.
cruel. It's really cruel that a human being can self-destruct that easily with those amount of gifts.
Yes.
It's like we get too many, we don't know what to do with them, and we end up just self-destructing because we can't handle it. So that is actually the question of our time. Our entire planetary society is now so close to completely losing it, utterly, forever, losing the plot and self-destructing. because we don't know how to use talent, genius, whatever you want to call it. We don't know how to use it in a grounded manner.
Yes.
It's the question of our time. And pills are not going to do it. Drugs are not going to do it. Fake spiritual paths are not going to do it. So we know it's not. But what is it then that's going to do it? That's what we have to find out quick.
Yeah.
As a species.
I agree with you. Yes.
You know, the final chapter is transform or die out.
Right.
As a species, transform or die out. That's your choices, ladies and gentlemen. So get to the bridge and start to seriously apply yourselves to this koan. How do I transform before I die out?
Yes, and I would like to ask you about the fractal time dimension. And you said, I have read again, that the speed of change in fractal time dimension is going faster and faster. So
Yeah.
I feel like these things are connected. That's why when, maybe I'm mistaken, if we have this opportunity, I would say, to be connected with this kind of creative source, and if the changes in this source are getting faster and faster, and we still don't have the tool basically to perceive and to perceive this kind of force to create here, that's why we are basically lost. So could you please explain a little bit what is fractal time dimension and what are these changes which are going on currently according to...
The easiest way to understand fractal time compression is to envisage a spiral. What's happening is, well, a fractal is infinite replication of the same pattern at ever increasing speeds of frequency.
Yes.
So a spiral gives you that idea. A long first circle. The second circle repeats exactly the same energetic template, but faster. And the closer you get to the center of the spiral, the faster the spiral actually unfolds. If you do it in 3 dimensions, it's like a pyramid going from the base to the peak. If you imagine a 3-dimensional pyramid. So time itself, if it is a fractal phenomenon, as everything in the galaxies are, absolutely, completely fractal. One of my main interviews was with Nassim Haramein, who's now receiving a great deal of attention in the scientific community, because he's actually got a thesis that shows that the human being is at the center of the entire fractal universe, from the ultimate micro to the ultimate macro. And that there's a mathematical sequence that actually connects us to every single atom and every single quasar in the galaxy. We are at the center. So fractal time begins and ends with our own consciousness. And it appears to us. And again, I've heard the arguments that no, fractal time is not happening. Time is not speeding up. That's just an idea. But you feel it. I feel it. I was 27 years old 3.5 minutes ago, as far as I'm concerned. Like, wait a minute.
You too?
What? That was 27 minutes ago. I was 27 years old. What? So I've been talking about fractal time for 20 years. And I used to ask audiences in Japan 25 years ago, how many people in the audience here actually feel that a year is now about 8 months, for example? And one person would put the hand up, look very ginger, like, well, I can't get that feel. One person. 2 years later, an audience of 1,000 people, 50 people would put their hands up. When I finished the lecture series, it was like that scene again from Close Encounters, when they go to India and they all put their hands up. It came from there. Everybody put their hand up. So this is not just my imagination. And these are Japanese salaried workers, businessmen, businesswomen, mothers, children. They're all putting their hands up. So either I'm hypnotizing an audience or they're actually feeling that time is speeding up.
Does it somehow connect it with the frequency of the energies?
I think it's all the same unfolding of something that is so far beyond our comprehension that we're just like children trying to describe things that we've never seen. What is time? We don't know. What is energy? We don't know. What is just about anything? Actually, we don't know. We just have theories.
Right.
And there are quantum physical theories about time. There is a Hawking theory about time, which I'm highly suspicious of. Even Einstein's theories about time, I'm highly suspicious of. Because if everything is not instantly connected everywhere in the universe all the time, right? If it takes the speed of light to get from A to B, that really doesn't sit well with me. It's got to be instantaneous communication or nothing. So where does that put the idea of time and fractal contraction? But you feel it, I feel it, everybody feels it. We don't know what's going on. But finally, the spiral gets to the center, doesn't it?
Yes.
It has to.
Yes.
It has to. So I think that's where we're headed. I call it the event horizon 2. Once we get to the event horizon, there's no turning back. And I think we're real close. Real close.
Yeah.
In our lives. In our lives.
Okay. But my question was, it sounds to me like it's a possibility that galaxies are not receding from us at the speed of light. Instead, it's time speeding up. So
Very, very, very potent, that is. Again, from our limited perspective, looking at the galaxies and the stars, everything is supposition. There is like in our interview work, Mary, actually, next week I'm going to interview Wal Thornhill, who's the world's leading expert in the electric universe. The electric universe is discounts multi-dimensions, discounts black holes, discounts Einstein's theories completely, deconstructs all of that mathematic-based science and says, what do you see? What do you actually see in the galaxies? What phenomenon do you see? And how can we actually replicate that on Earth? Plasma. It's a plasma universe. So again, there are theories and theories and theories, but it takes you back to the koan. What is it?
One.
And what is one? Right? What does that mean now here with us? You know, what does it mean?
Can I suggest? We started to talk about earthing, and I think in our conversation, one means earthing because it seems for me, and I hope for our listeners too, that's the one that can unite, merge all these 3 dimensions. So can you please explain us the practical use of earthling, of this device?
Very good. The practical applications of earthing is robust health. If you're not healthy, it doesn't matter how creative and brilliant you are. It's not really going to be as effective if your vehicle is resilient.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line is our understanding of what is health is extremely limited. We don't actually yet understand what a really healthy person can do because we think health is lack of disease. It's something way bigger than that.
Yes, I agree.
So I'm looking at, in Japan, for example, I'm looking at 130 million people who work really hard. They apply themselves. They've got great discipline. They're smart. But compared to 40 years ago in Japan, they are weak marshmallows, health-wise. They are weak. They are depressed. They don't sleep. The young people in Japan now, if you can believe this, it was actually on the BBC, 40% of young Japanese people in their 20s are not interested in sex. Now, this is serious business when almost half of your population says, nah, not interested. I'm too busy on the computer. It's like, why bother? It's emotional. This is serious, unhealthy. in the world's leading nation. I mean,
Yeah.
what's happening here?
Is that part of the reason why Japan is getting older?
Yeah, they can't have any more babies. The birth rate is plummeting. The government is freaking out. 20 years ahead predictions, you're going to have an entire nation of old people who need constant medical care that is going to cost billions of dollars. The young people won't be having sex, so they won't be having kids. It's the end of civilization, man. It's clear.
Now, does that go along? Does that go along with a low marriage rate as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's all connected. So if we can return people to health, I don't want to sound grandiose, if we can return people to health. If people can return themselves to health in the simplest, most fundamental way, which is get your feet on the planet, get connected to the absolute zero potential field, slightly negative, where real health happens, vibrant health, then everything will start to change. We'll start a new cycle of reproduction and creativity and health, and we'll be sane. We won't make the same mistakes as we made when we're flying around the galaxy in our brains, disconnected from our planet, which we trashed, by the way, because we were not connected to the planet. I mean, this idea is so beautifully simple, it's crazy. Nobody will get it. And the guy who founded it, Clint Ober, he said to me when I met him, he said, Echan, don't talk to guys about this. His very words was, they'll piss on your parade.
Huh.
And do you know why? He said, because guys think they're so damn smart. They'll say, if it's that simple, why did I not know about it? It's an attack on their ego. He said, the women, they'll get it right away. Because first of all, the women have got children. And the mothers will go, if I'm getting healthy, my kid's going to get healthy.
Yeah.
And they'll immediately tell their kids, and then they'll immediately tell their friends, which is exactly what happened in Japan. The entire earthling movement is powered by women. Every seminar I do, there'll be some guy stuck inside his cerebral, prison, and he'll find all of these excuses why it must be wrong and it can't be true, and it's all hypnosis and it's all bullshit. And he'll go through all these machinations. Meanwhile, all the women in the room are going, wow, my pain just went. Oh, my wedding ring just slipped off my finger for the first time in 7 years. That means the inflammation's gone down, doesn't it, Sensei? And I go, yeah. How long did it take? 20 minutes. And the guys are going, he must be tricking him somehow. And who's trashing the planet? The guys. Go figure.
Yeah.
If we can get the guys back on Earth.
Just quick question about the chi. Is that the same chi that's mentioned in Feng Shui?
Very, very insightful. I worked with Oriental medicine. I was a doctor of Oriental medicine for 10 years. I studied in Osaka, so I have a degree in Oriental medicine. So I was an acupuncturist. And every day, ki, we call it ki, the Chinese call it chi. And it's energy, and we're trying to figure out what this weird stuff is, right? It's exactly the stuff that you connect with when you're earthing. So I think to say that chi is energy is too out there in the head. It's actually probably, when it comes down to it, electricity.
Mm-hmm.
We live in an electrical universe. We're electrical beings.
Right.
And chi is what they probably called the electromagnetic force, right?
Interesting.
And now I'm going, oh, finally, that's the part of the puzzle. It's that. That's why the Tai Chi masters are all doing it barefoot.
Huh.
Okay.
And how,
So,
and how do you envision this earthing movement? What is your vision?
somebody interviewed me in Japan and said, how do you start a movement? And I said, you don't. A movement starts a movement.
Right.
In other words, you can't plan it. All of the great movements of humanity, the civil rights movement, all of those things were not planned by somebody going, first we do this, and then we do this, and then it happens. That's never how it happens. It's spontaneous awakening in consciousness creates a movement, and then it goes where it wants, right? So although you need to put certain things in place to start the ball rolling, you do need concepts and ideas. You do, but to think that you can create a movement is actually ridiculous. An individual can't create a movement. People do, and right now in Japan, it took 4.5 years, and then suddenly, people are putting videos on Facebook of them walking around in parks barefoot. And it's just fractally expanding at an enormous speed. It's actually happening faster in Japan. It's taken 20 years in the West for people to understand the term grounding or earthing. And Clint Ober is like going like, why is it taking so long? He's finally got Deepak Chopra on board. Finally. It took him a year. And he had to do double-blind tests and show him all this stuff. And he's a smart guy, Deepak Chopra.
Yes.
Why didn't he get it 25 years ago? That's the question. What's taking you so long, mister? And what's taken so long is that this is too simple, too dangerous, too direct. And it always comes back to the guy going, well, like I just said, how come you didn't get this 25, 30 years ago? It's always been out there, you know.
Yes.
If you had the intelligence to actually go there and the courage to actually go to that simplicity, which would deconstruct all the secondary theories completely. Because the fact is, health food is good, but you're wasting your time unless you're grounded in eating health food. Yoga is great, but you're wasting your time unless you're grounded in doing yoga. Meditation, cool, but if you're not a grounded meditator, forget it. These are secondary stage situations. Primary stages, you're an earthling.
Yes.
Then you can start to meditate as an earthling. But right now, you're a space cadet doing yoga and meditation, flying through the galaxies, totally disconnected. Thus, you trash your planet with no sense of consequence at all. So, it's simple.
Yes. That's why it's unbelievable.
That's why it's unbelievable. I know. So, you know, I'm hoping that this will spark globally. I'm hoping that every major city on the planet will have an earthling or earthing or grounding or barefoot park, so that the average Mr. and Mrs. citizen who think this is the most ridiculous idea you can imagine can actually go to like a theme park. Like the Eden Project in Britain is a theme park that draws millions and millions and millions of people to understand the relationship between plants and humans. The Eden Project is pure genius. If you haven't heard of it, Google Eden Project. Okay? I envisage something like the Eden Project in every major city in the world, where you will go to a park, but there will be a team of doctors and nurses at the entrance. They'll take your blood sample before you go in there. They'll do a bone density check before they go in there. They'll do a temperature check and a blood pressure check before you start earthing. And because your body is electromagnetically polluted when you go in there, your indexes will be pretty high in terms of dis-ease. Then you'll walk around the park in this beautiful environment for 30 minutes, looking at plants, reading, meditating, doing yoga, and you'll come out of the park and then you'll get all the checks again, bone density, blood pressure, etc. And even the most doubting Joe will have to go, wow, in 30 minutes, this just happened to my body. I'm doing it. I'm proclaiming my bone density results for the last year are off the charts. Hard data. I have the physical bone structure of a 30-year-old.
30-year-old?
Yeah. 160% more dense than the average person in the 60s. And the staff at where I got the check, they were all like, must be a mistake.
I'm taking my shoes off.
But
Right
before
now.
you take them off, get a bone density check first. Then you'll be able to shove it in their face, before and after. I didn't do the before.
Now, is this a cause of osteoporosis?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You are so smart, you people. Osteoporosis is the disease of the millennium. Everybody expects their bones to start falling apart. It's nonsense. Clint Ober said to me, you know what the cause of osteoporosis is, Echan? Electron deficiency. I went, you what? Electron deficiency.
Because
You're
the
not getting
electrons are
free
missing.
electrons coming from the earth. You're stopping them.
And the electrons are what's holding the calcium together?
The way he explained it was that the natural chemical balance of the human body, and you have all these chemicals in your body, in your bloodstream, in your organs, which are finely tuned to be in balance, including calcium. And in order for that finely tuned balance to stay in balance, you need to be at zero potential, which means not positively charged. Not positively charged. Positively charged, you can compare to an acidic body. Negatively charged, you could compare to an alkaline body, right?
Okay.
If you're positively charged, your chemical structure will go out of balance very quickly, and your body will go into an alarm mode, and it will say, hey, we don't have enough calcium in the blood here. What's going on? Your brain's going to send out signals to your body. What's with the calcium imbalance? We need more calcium, boys and girls. Where are we going to get it? The bones, honey. So your body will start to leach calcium from itself in order to keep homeostasis going. That's what Clint Ober told me, and my jaw hit the deck. Like, the guy's not a doctor. He's an engineer, a cable engineer, and he's telling me something that is so mind-blowing, so simple. So let's test it. I did. And I found out the more I earthed, the stronger my bones became, because thank God our bones regenerate, as does every part of our body all the time. So if you've got osteoporosis now, forget about the calcium supplements. Total waste of time. Get your electron deficiency fixed by standing on the earth, and I guarantee, from 4.5 years of experience, I guarantee, if you go and do a bone check now, and then you earth for 6 months and you do a bone check, your percentages will absolutely increase. Absolutely. Now I'm at 160%.
And for our listeners, where can they go to find more information about earthing?
The book, Clint Ober and 2 other co-authors, one who's a cardiologist, Dr. Sinatra, and one who's a writer, Martin Zucker, and Clint Ober wrote the book Earthing about 15 years ago. Everything's in there. Thermographic photos of temperature changes before and after, double-blind studies, up the yin-yang, all privately funded by Clint Ober, because hospitals and doctors don't want to go there, because it's obviously fake. So all of the studies have been privately funded, all double-blind studies, all scientifically done. I mean, read it, practice it, get it. That's the end of the story.
And does it also talk about materials to not just what you're wearing, but what you're walking on, like wooden floors, rubber floors?
Wooden floors, rubber floors, no good. First thing you have to do is understand what is a conductor and what's an insulator, and what is a semiconductor.
Okay.
So you got insulator, you got conductor, and you got semiconductor, just like you have in the technological world. Wood, unless it's wet and alive, if it's dry wood on a floor, insulation, no good. So you can be barefoot in your house all day, won't do anything at all.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying. It's basic electrical theory.
Yeah, it's basic electrical theory. So to understand electrical theory is to understand earthing. To understand earthing is to understand actually the electrical universe. So they're all connected. And that's why I'm interviewing Walt Thornhill. And he actually, I asked him, you know about earthing, Walt? He said, of course, I'm earthing all the time in my computer. He's got an earthing pad underneath his computer.
Okay.
So he gets it.
What is the best conducting surface to walk on? You were on Iceland and Earth, which seemed to be a moonscape, basically. What was that? A good conducting
Fantastic.
terrain?
Fantastic. Because, first of all, well, the question is, does it make any difference where on Earth you stand? Like some people would say, is it better to earth at Machu Picchu or a sacred site? And the simple answer is scientifically, no. Any point on the surface of the earth that is actually open, grass, woodland, even rock does communicate earth if it's connected. All oceans are the best place ever. The ocean is the ultimate place to earth. Because water is the perfect conductor of earth energy, right?
Right.
Okay.
So for jet lag, get in the sea as soon as you arrive at your destination, as I did in California. Jet lag's gone because you've immediately reconfigured your body to that space-time coordinate electromagnetically. Jet lag's gone. So that's in the book too, jet lag and earthing. When you get into it, I suggest Laura Conover. She's going to be another of my guests. She's the #1 doctor in the world, really fully embracing earthing. She said, even if you can only find a leaf, if you're in a concrete jungle and you can find a leaf sticking out of the ground, or there's a tree with one leaf, just both fingers on that leaf instantly discharges the static in your body. Doesn't take a second, instant. So that's earthing too. But the longer you practice, it does appear to be important. The more you practice, the more earth you'll get. But scientifically speaking, discharge, you're back to zero. This is a Panasonic computer. I've tested it with a voltmeter. If I touch this right now as I'm touching it and I'm not earthed, it's about 40 volts going through my body right now. 30 to 40 volts, I kid you not. If I was earthed right now, that would be zero. That's scary numbers.
Yeah.
I've got up to 75 volts in front of a flat screen.
So
And you're sleeping next to plugs leaking.
So if you have something like a grounded conductor in the house, just touching it regularly dissipates this static.
That's why Clint Ober, against his will, actually started the earthing business. He said, I wasn't interested in business. The guy's made his fortune, you know. But his friends were saying, can you just make me one of those things you put on your bed to make you sleep better? And he said, okay. That was the beginning of earthing.com. It's quite the business now. It's a multi-million-dollar business. So the earthing sheets work. I mean, I sleep earthed all the time. I have a traveling earthing sheet I brought here. It's on the bed. Plug it into the earth port, you know. Sleep like a baby. It's tremendously important to sleep well.
Yes. Oh,
and
absolutely.
We don't. So, I mean, Huffington Post editor, the woman who started the Huffington Post, wrote a book called Sleep Revolution because it's such a problem now, sleeping.
Yes.
And everything in that book was great, except she entirely missed the point of the most important thing you can do to sleep well is to earth your body. With all that knowledge and money and influence and power, she missed it completely. You got to get a sleep coach. You got to meditate before you go to sleep. You got to write down all the things that you have to do tomorrow so you get them out of your mind so you don't think. She had all of these smart ideas to start sleeping because she was an insomniac because she worked so hard. And she missed it. She missed the earthing connection. Beautifully missed it.
Is it easy to move on with this idea, or do you experience some obstacles on your journey?
Oh, I will definitely experience obstacles if I continue to be associated with this in Japan, because, of course, nobody pays any attention to a paradigm shifting idea until it gets dangerously close to their territory. And then the big axes and knives will come out. You can bet you. And Clint Ober has been lampooned and ridiculed, especially by the medical community, for so long. And that's why he said, you have no idea how much money I wasted on trying to get scientists and doctors who are men to get behind me on this. You have no idea what I went through. So he was very clear about, don't waste your time with the men. Go for the women. They'll get it.
Okay.
Earth mamas get it.
Yes.
The men, so I'm not going the route of academics, science, proof. Forget it. We don't have the time for that. We'll all be gone by the time those guys get around to actually getting it.
Oh, yeah.
Way too late. So there will be resistance. You can bet. There will be resistance. It still hasn't reached the point where it's serious enough. It's some kind of health fad. You know, it's like the back to earth guys. You know, it's a bunch of hippies. It's not dangerous yet.
Mm-hmm.
But when the medical community starts losing billions of dollars, when sleep medicine becomes unnecessary, when we find out that multiple sclerosis, which never existed when I was a kid, never heard the term multiple sclerosis until we'd been wearing insulated shoes for 2 or 3 decades, right? And now you get it when you're 30 years old. Are you kidding me? And you can't figure out that multiple sclerosis and all of these difficult to pronounce new diseases, fibromyalgia. I mean, look at Gaga, Lady Gaga. I mean, I want to get in her face and say, Earth, honey, all this pain you're suffering is easy to get rid of. Stand on the earth. She's got 5 massage people around her all day, injections. She can't perform anymore. The poor woman. If you're out there, Lady Gaga, listen to this podcast and get your feet on the earth.
Right.
So go figure. How many people are going to lose how much money? The fibromyalgia medical team is going to be the naked emperor as soon as they figure it out.
Interesting.
So that's how passionate I am about this. Like, it's that simple.
So what's your
The
plan?
way home is clear.
Yes, I agree. What's
So
your plan for the next 5 years, for instance?
plan for the next 5 years is survive the next 5 years, because I'm going to be 66 pretty soon, and I've lived a very wild life, and I know genetically that even though I'm extremely healthy, healthier than I've ever been, I know that statistically probability is that my DNA will probably want to switch off if I don't align myself with what is called in power theory a higher field of influence. We call it an attractor pattern in chaos theory. A higher attractor pattern means a higher level of consciousness, for lack of a better word. I don't really like the high and the low analogies, but for the next 5 years, I want to use the remaining time literally to empower other people, to inspire other people to become fanatically passionate about whatever it is they're doing. And to be fanatically passionate, you must be unbelievably healthy. Right. You have to leap out of bed with sparks coming out your ass to do this. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're not resiliently, robustly healthy, which means you're an earthling.
True.
So survive, number one. And then follow the spirit, follow the unseen, follow the synchronicity, and see what unfolds with great curiosity and passion.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Could you please share with us, is there something you would want to talk about what we didn't ask you about yet?
The challenges of fatherhood, marriage, and aging.
What do you want?
Which all come together.
Mm-hmm.
Which all come together. Nobody teaches us in our culture, nobody teaches us just how hard it is to stay in a relationship, whether it be father, son, daughter, marriage partner, friends, to stay in a healthy, passionate relationship with those around you as you realize that you're heading towards aging and death and demise, right? Nobody broaches that subject honestly anymore. But there is one fantastic book I read called Falling Upwards.
Falling upwards.
Facing the second half of life with joy. In other words, everybody prepares you for the first half of life, which is you have to have an ego, you have to have a plan, you have to work, you have to produce children, you have to raise children, you have to do all of these things. You have to. That's your duty, right? And I've done that. But very few people actually teach you about the second half of life, which is failure, disappointment, lack of energy, disease, sickness, operations, business crashes, all of this stuff which inevitably will happen because you're a human being, we kind of avoid. But Falling Upwards gave me the hint, and it was like, expect problems. Embrace them, somehow have the faith to get through them. These are the issues, the dark side that people don't want to face. The dark night of the soul is really, really important. But we don't want to talk about it in Western culture because it's let's not go there. Let's be optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm facing now. I'm facing, 43 years married. I'm facing, there's a large part of me wants to be alone as I reach the end, which sounds like, what? Why don't you want to be with all your friends? Actually, when animals die, what do? They go off alone into the forest. When they're sick, they go off alone into the forest. They don't want to cause problems with the people around them and involve everybody in their drama. They got the nobility to go off into the forest alone and die, right? So how does that relate to us as individuals now? Do we have the nobility of soul to go, okay, one of my interview subjects will be Satish Kumar, who's 82-year-old, brilliant, eco-spiritual wonder man. And his mother fasted to death. Now, we're all going to go, what? It's totally natural in India. She's like 85 or whatever, and she knows she's going to die. So she says to the whole family, well, brothers and sisters, daughters and sons, I'm going to die. And I want to die clean. So I'm going to fast to death. And young Satish is there listening to his mother going, I'm going to fast to death? And they all go, okay, Mom, sounds good to me, because they have a spiritual culture, a transcendental culture. And they watch her fast to death. Now, nobody in Western civilization is going to go towards that idea. They're going to keep you alive on a respirator for an extra 10 years in your meat package rather than let that happen. But that is noble. That is spirit. So these are the things we're not talking about. We're dancing around the edges, but, mortality, face it, get over it. And the only way to get over it is to face it. So that's the kind of thing I would like to talk about, but I'm going to need another cup of coffee for that, and I think maybe it's enough.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, and it was a fantastic experience for us, and yes, I'm more than sure for the listeners too. Thank you very much, and we would be very happy to have you once again to the interview on our podcast.
Yes, thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Not at all. Much obliged to you both.
Thank you very much.
Signing off.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Yes. Have
Bye.
a good day. Bye.
You too.